Moving on. Okay. Right, we've got some oil fittings come. I've been waiting for these for a while for our sandwich plate. So we'll just go through that for a minute about what I'm proposing. So I've just offered this side of the frame up that's obviously detachable to get the engine out, to kind of make sure we've got clearance instead of building something, cutting pipes to length, all that sort of stuff, and then it kind of not fitting. So the motor's sat top dead centre on the back two cylinders, ready for the heads going on, which are pretty much ready behind me. What I've got here is an 1/8 NPT thread, which is the thread in the sandwich plate, converted to the AN4 fitting on the end there. So what I've got is I actually sell these as well, some of the AN4 6 in the box over there. I've got loads of different fittings and stuff. So yeah, I've got like a 45, an inline, and 90s. I think coming off here 90 kind of fits. So what I'm proposing here at the minute is, as I say, we've got the little NPT thread in there. I'm just going to put it in finger tight. I'm not finalising anything at the minute, and a 90-degree fitting on there, which kind of comes out at that, come out of that angle. I've just, as they say in Blue Peter, put the fitting on this end. So yeah, one we made earlier. So I've just installed that fitting on there. I mean, this section of it, I could take the 90 off and put the 45 on. Once it's been put onto this section, you can you can change it for the others. So, but I do believe we are wanting a 90-degree on there. So again, it's a mock-up at the minute, a mock-up of what we. So if I just screw that back onto there, like I say, nothing's tight, but it's kind of going to go. Well, when the head's on, the oil fitting is. I'll tell you what, I've got the oil pipe here. Originally, okay, it came off where that I've put my blank, so it kind of did that originally. So I've got to get to here and here when she's built up. So it gives you a kind of idea of what length you're going to need. And so yeah, when it's on the head, that's the position it's going to be in. Now we've got a water pipe to consider, and we've also got carburetors to consider, but we're going to carry on and get this built up. But it's looking kind of to be able to be sort of like that, and perhaps underneath there's actually a takeoff underneath, maybe go around the other side to get to here. Don't know yet, and they may both, I don't know, maybe it would actually, maybe we could run that like that, perhaps. So yeah, it's the proper AN braided hose, proper stuff for oil. It's rubber it's nylon on the outside, and it's also got stainless steel reinforcing on the inside. So that's the pipe that we're going to use. It's 5mm bore, I think officially it's a 5mm, slightly bigger than that, but it's again, it'll only flow as much as the smallest orifice, if that's the right word. So it's certainly better than the original. You can see that in there. It's kind of the same diameter up in that pipe there, but remember we do split it into two then. And you could put an 1/2 inch pipe on here, but if this in here has only got a small feed into here, it wouldn't matter what size that is. So at least coming out of here, we're straight out the oil pump into the pressurized gallery that the oil pressure relief valve is maintaining a set pressure. So anyway, I don't want to use that. I may end up having to use that, but I doubt it. I think we can get by doing what we want to do. So there's the original pipe. That'll be for sale soon. Anybody wants an original one? Right. Okay, so yeah, the frame's just been offered up, kind of mocking up, so make sure that we're not fitting something in here that's going to be like, oh god, we can't chuck and fit that now because we didn't think about. So it's handy that the frame section is detachable and we can kind of gauge it. So right, remove this now at the and I'll show you the other end of the. Just let me put this out of the way for a minute. Right. The other end, where it goes into the head, maybe I'll cover this in a little bit more detail, but these are what, so take that off there, no, these are what I propose to use. They're not cheap, but they're nicely made. They are AN4 to M10. So this is the original banjo bolt. Obviously it wants its sealing washers. Little shoulder there. Again, part of the original system that I don't like. I'll show you, see if we can get this on camera. When the bolt was in the original banjo, which is the same size as this, when you look down there, it's not a hole down the centre of the bolt like a normal banjo bolt. It actually comes down the side of these, and it really is quite restricted down there. So my thoughts were, okay, let's take off these ridges and just give it a little bit more room to flow. But no, we need the ridges to centralise the bolt and centralise the underneath sealing washer. So for me, all I'm going to do, just remove a little bit of material across that flat, leave the peaks, and just on the flat section there, you can see it's actually slightly rounded. I'm just going to take that flat off one, so that when it's there it just exposes more of an area for the oil to flow through. Just little bits, you know, little bits. What we're not doing, and what we don't want to do, is obviously take I don't think that's ever going to be an issue, but take the oil pressure away from the crank and send that much up the top that it's just about flow for me. I mean, imagine that being bolted to the, you know, bolted to the head. I mean, you know, it really is, well, you know, I mean, it worked to a degree. Obviously it worked to a degree. I mean, this motor's done 16,000 miles, but, you know, it worked to a degree, but I don't know, there really were areas I think that they could have improved. So that's what we've got. Original bolt, and like I say, it's an AN4 to M10. So wherever that goes, when it's up onto the head, I think there's a little shoulder on the head that we may have to just remove a little bit of, like an area of the casting, just remove a little bit just to get that, because it's bigger than the pipe, just to get that to kind of swing out the way. But I'll cover that bit when we get the head on. So yeah, I mean, essentially that's going on the end of there, and oil feed up to the heads. Right, I'm going to remove that now. And yeah, while the gasket's through, let's just have a quick heads up on the gaskets. I'm going to put my oil pipe out of the way for a minute. Yeah, we've got valve stem seals, the two head gaskets, which is predominantly what I needed, the two head gaskets. What is bizarre, what is bizarre, I don't know what they thought with this proper old gasket set, but we've got 4 rocker cover gaskets. Now, do they not know there's only 2, or is there 2 different rocker cover gaskets because there's 2 different rocker covers, perhaps? Not sure. Down to this point, and we'll have a look. Are they the same? Are they different? Let's have a look. All still sellotaped in from the 80s. Yeah, so we've got a new one there. Okay. And a new one there, which is essentially a bit of rubber mould in there, but you know, are they different? Don't know. They look the same to me, but there's no obvious. Just wants a bit of trimming up before they get fitted. These, you know, the moulding. So, but they look the same. So why we've got 4, I really don't know. But anyway, so they can go out of the way for a minute. And yeah, so we're looking at now new head gasket. This NE stuff always really was quite good. So So yeah, we are, so it's going to be that way when she's on. So just checking it all up there. Obviously note, in fact to turn this round a little bit, note the small hole at the top. So as the water's fed straight in, it doesn't just short circuit and come straight up here, leaving hot spots around this side. It has to flow round through the head, around the bottom here, up into the head before it can be off out up to the you know, off to the radiators. So, but yeah, you see this on a lot of, certainly on like an inclined cylinders, you'll see a hole. You see certainly restrictive holes up here, and we've only got the one. So as the water is entering in the middle of the V in here and going through this little hole up into the water gallery here, it could have a tendency to just want to short circuit straight up there and out and then leave this. So it's just a bit of a restriction, forcing it to come down here and do its job. So we're at TDC, so I'm going to move my oil, playing around with my oil fittings and stuff. So put my oil kit down there for a minute. Yeah, why we need 4 rocker cover gaskets, I don't know, but anyway, so I think the head's ready. I'm going to just end it at this point here. Obviously everything's clean, ready for it, same on the head. I'm just going to make sure we've got dowels sat in the right position before we go. We'll get the head on, pull the chain through, and we'll take it from there and start doing a bit of valve timing. Okay, pick it up in a minute. Okay, so we've got gasket faces all cleaned up. Point to remember if you're at this stage is, if you're going to use the earth strap in that position, it needs doing now, because once the head's on, that's pretty much impossible to get to. Make sure all the ones are in, because once this head's on, you can't get to these to get them in. So back to all gasket faces are cleaned up. Because I've got one dowel in the head and one dowel in the block, I can't, without destroying them, get, you know, 2 in one or 2 in the other. So just a bit of a alignment to get them to line up. First step is just get the head on. Okay, so we're going to get that dowel into that side, and I can see this one at this side. He says it's not quite in the right position. There we go. Okay, so yeah, head down, nearly down. Just wants a little bit of a, with a rubber persuader. There we go. She's down, just kind of with its own weight. So all we've got now is we just want to fish the chain out. So I'm going to set the cams up and the cam caps and everything associated with this head. We'll set it all up on the side here, and then we can kind of put it together and yeah, but now she looks nice. It's got these fins in and what have you to finish, just give them a bit more of a polish up, just add a bit of a refresh with the paint. So while we're at this point, actually, yeah, our oil feed bolt that we talked about earlier, when he goes in there, this aluminium kind of boss, or what it's there for, is when you're tightening up the original metal pipe, it stops you kind of the pipe twisting as you're tightening it up and putting a kink in the pipe or whatever. So it sort of puts it against there to hold it while you're tightening up. We don't need it to be in that, and when we get the rubbers on, the carbs on here, this could be a little bit close to here, so I may end up taking a little bit of that out of there. Now I don't have to do it, I don't want to do it. If it fits and we can make it work, then that's good enough for me. So but if we do have to do it, we'll only kind of know on the final build. So what I'll probably do is just get the hoover here and a Dremel and just cut a little, just so it allows us to move that oil pipe a little bit that way, clearing the rubber for the carbs. So anyway, that's a bit of work in progress. We'll cover that when we get a bit nearer. Okay, so I think the thing to do now is get, like I say, get everything set up for this head, and when everything's set up for this head, we'll go through building it and a bit closer with the camera perhaps, and get, you know, ourselves set up for tightening it up. Okay, pick it up in a minute. Right, all associated components are here. Head bolts cleaned down, threads cleaned, light oiled. As it is going to go back together, the two front caps, inlet camshaft, exhaust camshaft and exhaust camshaft caps. Centre chain guide sits up here over the top at the end, and our oil feed pipe that we'll discuss as that's going on too. So, okay, when removed, the cam chain tensioners, which are a bit weak, I have to say, a bit feeble, the cam chain tensioners are a bit of a bizarre animal to say the least. So anyway, essentially you fight against the spring in the tensioner, which is just inside there. Fight against that spring and lock it off with a pin. Pin being Allen key. Now, what I did when I removed it is the chain has to go through the centre, through this gap here. Bit awkward. Chain's ready here, but the chain has to go through, and the cam sort of sits in. So we need the chain through this gap here, which means this little R clip. So forgive me if you don't see much just at the minute, but what I've got to do with that is just use one of the bolts to free the R clip. So R clip, washer and pin. Okay, now I'm going to just position it like that, and I know exactly how that went. So now we can go like that. Essentially just do that with it. Okay, it just has to go in like that. Before we do anything else, we're just going to put our blade that's going to push against the cam chain back in. Okay, so we can kind of need 17 hands, as you can see, but we're going to try and do it with it still. I'm just going to do it and I will show you it done, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to get the pin back through. This is where, if you're really unlucky, you drop the R clip down into the engine, and or the pin or the washer. It looks a bit chaotic, but you know, until it sits down in there, it is chaotic. Okay, so I'm going to put my R clip and washer on over here, so we don't have any drop it down the tunnel mishaps. Right, there's my R clip. A bit bizarre, you think that that's all that holds that in, but you know, there we go. Right, trouble with gloves, you got no feel, have you? But I mean, you end up with, I started having a bit of skin issues, you know, with the oil and lube and detergents and thinners and God knows what. That's why I try and wear gloves when I can, but you sometimes just got no feel. Anyway, so now the chain is inside and the slipper essentially is pushing on it. We can now offer that in, but it's where we need a torch, because what we've got to do is just make sure the little foot of it sits. I'm just going to have to do this and then see if I can show it to you. The little foot has to sit. It's like a manufactured, welded together little bracket that is bolted inside the cases. Little manufactured, you know, welded and prepped up, folded and welded, and then bolted into the case. And all it is a little foot for the end of that slipper. That curved slipper just sits in a little socket, if you like. So I do believe that's in there. Trouble is the Allen keys on this job. The Allen key that I've got as a pin. You kind of need it to be all the way through. But when it comes to releasing it to put the tension back on the chain, this Allen bolt that we've got in the side. I'll move the camera in a minute when I get this actually set and sighted. So I'm just going to make sure it felt right, but I'm going to make sure that that's actually sat. It is awkward. There's no finesse way to do it or to show it. It's a bloody awkward thing. But luckily the way Honda made that little gadget at the bottom, it sort of drops in it on its own. But yeah, it is chaotic, and I ain't got enough hands to hold a frigging torch while I'm looking at this. There we go. Right, we have a bit of a chain snag going on there, so I'm just going to let that slide down, and you'll feel it engage because it pushes against the slipper. Okay, I'm going to find the bolts now that's sat in where it, and then bolt that back in.